Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for coming for another Sunday meeting where we try and step back a little and see life through some, if not rose-colored spectacles, at least some spiritually colored spectacles. And I'll tell you what got me started this week, actually. It was a story Viv told me. For some reason, we were discussing Liz Hurley, and I can't remember why Liz Hurley came up. I think it was Hugh Grant, that was it. So we got to Liz Hurley, and then Viv, she stays up with a lot of the gossip in Hollywood. I don't follow any of it, so I have no idea what's going on. But apparently Liz Hurley's boyfriend, who's called, what's his name, Viv? Steve Bing, is it? Am I getting this right? Anyway, I don't think it's important. It's Liz Hurley's boyfriend. She had a baby with him. Very rich. Multi-millionaire, and you'd think, everything to live for. This poor guy killed himself a few days ago. And I think it's really very symptomatic of these huge pressures that people are under because of this lockdown. It's inevitable. And of course, the powers that be, the phonies that are trying to keep this going, very naughty people, very nasty, but they're just ignoring all the collateral effects. Obviously, the number of cancer cases that just haven't been treated for 3 months, is that going to amount to a landslide of cancer deaths? You could be a bit cynical like me and think maybe we're going to have some more cancer survivals. I don't know. But I do know if I had cancer and I believed in my oncologist, that to be told I can't go to see him to have the treatment that would save my life, as he said, I'd be very upset, wouldn't you? Okay, Raju wants to say something. Let me just take a pause. Go for it, Raju.
Thank you there, Dr. Keith. My wife and I, Kati, have been talking about this, and for the last couple of years, we have been switching our lives to home-based living just because we felt the stress even before this pandemic. So
yeah, what you mean, the commute stress and the Dilbert cube stress, all of that?
Yep, environmental, just everything. Actually, we found ourselves taking care of ourselves better if we worked out of the home. We had more self-care. We had more self-care discipline, and we put in more daily things that would uplift us. Mm-hmm. We lived a more conscious life, basically.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, I wish more would do it. And I think the plea for this morning is, let me just finish my sentence because I know you didn't. I'm sorry, Rach. But, just wish more people would make this switch because it would save lives. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was interrupting you when I got started.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say that my wife and I are thinking about this, and we felt that it seems like those that can switch, who can make that transition, can come into a peaceful resolution with themselves. Of course, there may be some healing ahead of time. There may be some clearing. There may need to be some processing. But if the more they can come towards this place for themselves, within themselves, the more advanced they'll be, they'll make more advancements. And a final note, I just noticed that there's some statistics going around about how people are taking care of themselves now in this pandemic, and some of the other illnesses. I know you've mentioned that people aren't being able to get their procedures done, but some of the other illnesses are actually going down because people are actually taking care of themselves. That's what I heard. So I'd just like to get your reflection.
It can only be a good thing that people are forced inwards. They can't go out. I haven't been for 3 months able to go out and do the usual, raucous things like, machines, music, bars, drinking, all those things to take your mind off, that people have been forced inwards and to really evaluate themselves. And I think that's no bad thing. But to tie it back to where I started, Roger, the sad thing is that some people, when they go inside, realize that they're pretty empty. And they're pretty lonely, and that would seem to be true to this guy. As I said, he's richer than rich. Most people would dream of being as rich as he is. and yet he couldn't face. I mean, I guess he was lonely. You know, he's not currently in a relationship with Liz Hurley, maybe not with anybody. So it may be a story of lost love, you know, unrequited love. I really don't know, but it's interesting that people in different circumstances react in different ways, isn't it? Viv and I were watching a fascinating program the other night from the south of England where they talked to a miner. He doesn't mine anymore. She said, I guess you're glad to be out of it. And he said, no, I miss it. It was a great life. She said, you know, it was like, what? You mean going down a dark mine is good? He said, it was great. I was on my own, no people, no commute, no noise and commotion. He seemed very happy with the whole prospect. So it's, you know, people react in different ways to different things, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I need to be honest and say that my wife and I have made a lot of progress in the last 3 months, just out of being able to make some moves that we didn't foresee, switching to a home business, taking care of our health, putting in an exercise program,
Great.
and having a spiritual discipline on Sundays, and listening to you on Sunday for sure.
I'm flattered to be part of your success. That's great. Thank you, Raju. So am I okay to move on? Have you got more you want to say?
No, that's it, Doctor. Thanks so much.
Okay, no, thanks to you for being there. And Katya. Yeah, hi, Katya. I guess you're sitting in the background using one microphone, but anyway, you're very welcome, sweetheart. So where was I going with this? Well, I know where I'm going, but I mean, where I'm stumbling along. Oh, yes, this guy who was unhappy and lonely and committed suicide. And of course, it's been talked about somewhat. You know, there is a rash of suicides going on that people can't cope. Listen, I don't want to do suicides. It's Sunday morning. We want love and light. But it made me start thinking about what are the issues, you know, and I've talked about this before, especially with one of the Carlas. Loneliness is a big issue, and it does hurt. And statistically and scientifically, we know that the feeling of loneliness is the equivalent of smoking at least 15 cigarettes a day or being obese. And we both know those are significant health hazards. I'm not talking about, you know, health hazards, die young. I'm not just talking about not being happy. So it's an issue, and it made me start thinking of the subject of togetherness, love, connectivity. And I'd like to talk about that from time to time. So I'm just going to launch today from a little book of mine, which I wrote some time ago. You may have seen it. It's called The Life and Living Toolbook. Never too late when I published this book. An 83-year-old lady wrote to me, lovely person, Irene, and said, oh, it's changed my life totally. She was of Dutch extract and she was terribly game, and she ended up with having friends in her house for tea and biscuits, and they talk about different chapters from this book. Anyway, one of them is about, I called it quantum loving. Can we go there, perhaps? I think the only snag is that, you know, because I wrote this book many years ago, I'm working from the screen. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try and drag the, that's it. I'll try and drag the, what's it called, the dashboard over there, so that if someone does put their hand up, I will see it. So the message or the appeal is to try and start putting love into everything you do. And I don't necessarily mean sexual erotic love. That's not what this is about, although it's important. If you're in, you know, it's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world, most exciting and thrilling is to be erotically aroused and together and embracing with somebody who's magic for you. But anyway, I wrote a piece years ago that I called Put the Love into Everything. And I think after this, I'll send out a link so you can all get a copy of this. You know, it's free, it's just an essay. But it starts off with me remarking that one of the greatest sayings that I ever encountered, and one which changed my life the most was true freedom is liking what you do, not doing what you like. It came from a text on Zen Buddhism, which appealed to my heart and intellect very much in the 1960s. As a number one unruly individual who hated authority and conformity, it actually suited me very well. But it was a different way of looking at things. You know, you're not necessarily free to just do what you like. But if you like what you do, hey, life's a hit number. I quoted Peter Caddy. Now, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's one of the founders of the Findhorn community in northern Scotland. And he was fond of quoting his Rosicrucian teacher, a man called Dr. Sullivan. And this is Sullivan's quote: "Learn to love the place you are in, learn to love the people you are with, and learn to love the work that you have to do." The point is, of course, to find something you can love. Even if you hate the place you're in, find something about it that you can love. Find something about the people you're with to love, and find something about the work you're doing. Just forget the negatives and smile, you know, pick up on the good stuff. And it seemed to me to encompass much the same philosophy as, you know, liking what you do, not doing what you like. But we can go further than this even and say that life becomes really quite wonderful and worthwhile and pleasurable and meaningful if we put love into it. If you can't flow love into what you're doing, then it's probably not worth being involved with. You shouldn't be doing it. If your task isn't something you love doing, it isn't spiritually valuable to you. So don't do it, would be my advice. Find something you do love. The computer guys, you know, they have this saying, you've probably heard of it, GIGO. It stands for garbage in, garbage out, meaning if you pump garbage into your computer, it'll never do anything good. It'll only spew out mistakes and garbage at the other end. But it does reflect life. You know, life, you get out what you put in. So if you put in garbage, you're going to have an icky life. If you can pour love into what you do, hey, guess what? You know, love will come back to you. And I don't mean just the corny thing, you know, if you're nice and sweet, the boss will give you a raise. I mean, that's possible. It's part of the formula, but it's not really what I mean. I mean, it's something that gets overlooked and spoils the beauty of this particular bit of wisdom. But if you give out love, then you're going to get back love and warmth inside yourself. And I guess if I clicked on him again, Raju would want to say yes to that. They're discovering that, you know, it's a valid part of looking after yourself. Love yourself means that you find love. And it doesn't have to be some kind of shopping list or accountancy. You know, I give out so many units of love. Hey, I'm short of 8 more units before I'll give any more. Forget all that baloney. Just give. Just give, give, give. And it's sooner or later, in some form or other, it'll come round to you. And listen, you know, I'm an MD, I'm a qualified doctor. I can tell you one way it will come back. You'll live longer. People who can manifest love and share it and be engaged with others, they just live longer. It's as simple as that. So find the love in everything. It's a very strong message. Well, all right, you're saying, well, what about washing up and cutting the lawn and shopping for groceries? Well, you know, these jobs have to be done. So why not put love into them too? It means you can have fun mowing the lawn instead of going around grumbling the entire time. It's a perfect opportunity actually to develop spiritually, that you launch yourself into whatever you're doing and find how you can love it, find what about it that you can love, right? Now, obviously it helps in life in general. If you know what you're focused on, you know what your life's about. If you're just drifting, it's very hard, with no real purpose. It's very hard that you can't see the sort of web-like interconnectivity and interactions where each simple task fits in an important slot in your big life picture. If you haven't got a bigger picture, then nothing makes sense anyway. So, I mean, one of the symptoms, and this is a symptom, not just pain in the abdomen or a headache, this is a symptom. If you're experiencing boredom, laziness, and lack of involvement, something is wrong. It's a pointer to the fact your life's off key and you need to figure it out and get back on track. So it's easier to feel the love if we know we're doing something that's overall meaning for us. But, you know, one of the things I really enjoyed writing about and doing was cooking. You know, when preparing food, this is one of the great times to discover love. There's a saying, you all know it, that if the chef puts love into the food, it tastes better. Well, of course it does. You can test it for yourself, but it happens to be true. But more than that, you know, meal times are those times of day when the family comes together, where you've got a chance to share the love, you know, be intimate with each other, be loving and friendly, and make a fuss, you know, have somebody lay the table, somebody pull the cork out of the wine bottle, somebody else will chop vegetables in the kitchen, everybody getting engaged. That's really finding the love. And trust me, the food ultimately will taste very differently too. I even like putting gestures in it, you know, like dancing or theatrical gestures. You know, if you're adding condiments, you go like this, you know, and over your shoulder and things like that. Or dance around the kitchen as you're crossing from the sink to the stove. Look, instead of being resentful and grumpy about things that you've got to do that you don't want to do, why not make them fun? Because you are the one that will benefit. I mean, there'll be a few folks watching you and joining in. They'll benefit, but you definitely will, right? And there's something else you can do with love, by the way. It's a good way to solve a problem. If you flow love at something, it heals. You know, our tendency is to resist something and reject it and back away. Oh, I don't like this, this is trouble. And we create this rift between us and whatever the problem is, whether it's a person or a thing or situation, whatever. If you take that away so that you're connected and engaged, and you're telling yourself, I'm going to love this problem, you know, I'm going to love it away. It's amazing how that can work. That's probably a subject for a whole another talk, a whole another Sunday. But it's true, basically. Now, I want to share, the whole point of this is sharing something that's not mine. It's from a very lovely friend called Beryl Payne, Payne. Very ironic name, because he's not in the least pain. He's very lovely. And he's called Beryl, which sounds like a girl's name, but it's B-U-R-Y-L, Beryl. He lives in the Bay Area, and he talks about his quantum theory of love. And I like it. A lot of people, as you know, bandy about this word quantum without having the faintest idea what it means, you know, quantum leap. They don't know what a quantum leap is. They wouldn't know if they tripped over one in the dark. But anyway, a quantum, and the plural is quanta, is just a tiny packet of energy. It's about the smallest something or anything that you can have almost, except that it's not quite nothing. You know, it's something. It's like a particle, a wave, or maybe it's a wave and a particle, or it's neither, or it's both. I mean, even the physicists can't sort it out. Not important. What's important is that it's very, very vanishingly tiny. And we can start with the idea of a quantum as being the tiniest packet of anything that you can imagine. Now, in the quantum theory of love, what's the smallest particle? Ask yourself, what's the smallest particle of love? You decide, and if you want to, give me your answer, put it in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll look it up in a minute. Beryl suggested just a smile. If you smile at another person, that's a little quantum of love, yes. I thought maybe a kiss or a hug. To me, it would be a thought wave, just a little flicker or a feeling of something that's sent with love and positiveness towards somebody or something. And you know what I'm talking about, like a facial expression. It's just something positive that the person will notice and think, oh, I think that person likes me. It's very valuable. Of course, some atom bomb of love can go off. E equals mc squared means that a little bit of something, and there's gushings and gushings of energy. In this case, gushings of love, energy. I'm sure you've had that feeling where love just grips your body and soul. In fact, the depths of your soul. And that reminded, when I wrote it, of the beautiful words of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. In her book, Sonnets from the Portuguese, she wrote some beautiful love poems The most famous being the one that starts with, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." And in there, she's talking about loving to, this is why the words reminded me, loving to the depth and breadth and height of the soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. Lovely poem. I commend you to go and read the whole thing. Anyway, so back to the smallest particle of love. Figure out what you think and communicate it to me. Roger, hi. Communicate it to me. I don't know when you joined us, Roger, I didn't notice, but we're doing a bit of tongue-in-cheek quantum mathematics from a friend called Burrell Payne in the Bay Area. A sort of mathematics of love. And as I said, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's lovely fun, it's delicious. And again, he talks about gain. Now that's a physics term that radio buffs use. It's a bit like the amplification or the volume knob. It will amplify the signal. That's not exactly identical to volume, but to us simple, non-technical folks, it is. Now, I want to say this, right? For the most part, well-balanced human beings act like love amplifiers, basically. Now, in electronics, an amplifier is something that converts a given current into a bigger current. So you get more signal and you can do more with it. You can power more devices or power a bigger loudspeaker or whatever, okay? Now, and again, this is really, Burrell talking rather than me, but I like his model. So he's talking about people interacting with a little gain or not. So if you just process one times one times one, you can go on forever and it never changes. It's always one. But if you're coming in with just a little bit less than one-on-one interaction, just a little bit hold back, just a little bit unfriendly, let's just take the math of 0.9 instead of 1, you know, instead of giving back everything that you receive, instead of loving at the intensity of which you're being loved, you decide you're going to be a little bit careful and cautious, and I don't like him as much as he obviously likes me. So we'll call that a 0.9, okay? Well, now the sad thing is, like I said, 1 times 1 times, you can go on forever. 1 times 1 times 1 is always 1, so you don't lose anything. But as soon as you start to do 0.9 times 0.9 times 0.9, listen, it only takes 4 multiplications, you're down to 0.66. That's down by a third, only 4 multiplications. And of course, if you keep going, the whole thing is going to tend to 0. And I mean, really, isn't that basically what we're kind of experiencing a lot in the world today? If we're surrounded by lots of people who are maybe even only a little bit off positive, the combined effect soon multiplies and rapidly builds it down to 0 energy or 0 inertia. I mean, that's what committees do, for example. Nothing moves. So one of the key rules to success is plowing your own furrow. Now, it doesn't mean doing it alone. It means, you know, doing it with people who are congenial. You have to be king or queen of your own domain, but it doesn't mean you can't do it without helpers. But if you have even slightly negative helpers, as Burrell pointed out, sooner or later it spirals down. Now, of course, there's a reverse to this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you, would I? Supposing each interaction had a gain of only 0.01, so it's not 1, it's 1.01, so a tiny bit extra with each interaction. Well, the math is again very friendly and kind. It says after just 200 transactions, you've doubled the total amount of love. The Earth needs lots of 1.01s, basically, and not 0.9s to survive. It really is, I mean, I'm lousy at maths, okay, but, you know, Burrell's formula, even I can follow. If Q is a quantum of just a smidge of love, so you can have 1 plus Q, so you can have 1 plus a smidge of love times N. That's the number of transactions. It'll get bigger and bigger. So if it's 1 minus Q, or minus the little smidge or quantum, times N, it's going to go smaller and smaller. I think it's actually lovely. And, you know, you find that in the article when I send it to you. So if you want to start using this formula for the good, well, teach it to people. It's very funny, but very potent. And, you know, it has a lot to teach us in terms of spirituality. just go and teach other people to do it and ask them to do the same, and you'll be astonished at what comes back to you. Remember, you know, Beryl himself teaches that, you know, we're designers of the earth park, and we're also caretakers of it. We're not just idle public wandering through and looking at it. Now, I added my top spin a little bit. This is what I do. I exaggerate. I do. I know. But shoot for a 2, all right? If 1.01's good, why not go for a 2? You may get there, but you know, there's a saying, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll go a long way off into space. So when you're engaging with somebody, whether at work or in private life or in an intimate relationship, focus on what you can do that will benefit the other person. And your positive, genuine efforts will have lasting impact. And it's back to really what I was saying at this time of trouble. A lot of people are lonely and misfiring. You know, they're not firing on all cylinders. They're not getting it together in the way that we are. They don't have any kind of sharing, some people. I mean, I'm guessing that guy that flung himself out the window didn't have anybody to talk to. And you know, that, who's that super, yeah, Howard Hughes, you know, the guy who's terrified of germs and wouldn't let anyone in his presence. He's frightened of germs and washed the knob handles and everything. A bit like we're told to do with COVID now, come to think of it. But he was stinkingly rich, and so nobody ever came near him because he was so far beyond the average human being. You know, he was a billionaire in the 30s. That the poor guy was lonely and his life was, it was disgustingly miserable. Okay, so it means, in certain ideologies like Buddhism, Hindu things, we hear of karma. It is an ideology. It's not familiar to most people, or the idea isn't, but we can adapt it anyway. So if you just think of it as kindness, going, you know, what goes around comes around. So if you take the trouble, the care and the time to be nice to people, somebody out there is going to be nice to you back. Now, there's a saying to do with this in terms of money. If you're generous and give, sooner or later, the money will come back to you. But there's a saying, a very powerful saying, that the hand that takes is not the hand that gives. Meaning you can spend all your money you like on ex-convicts and drug addicts, but you're not going to get any money from them. It's probably some anti-mame who's a millionaire and dies and leaves you a lot of money for your charity. Do you see what I mean? You can't calculate it like accountancy. Well, they've had plus 500 units, so I want 500 back, otherwise I'm out of pocket. So you can't keep score. That's mercenary. It just doesn't work. And you give to others and care for them because it doesn't matter to you what you get in your turn. Expressing, a few minutes ago I said expressing your love now will mean that you benefit from it now, not from things you're going to get, but from how you feel. The instant feeling of being a caring, connected person is nice. I mean, we are born to love. I've said many times, love is our being, it's our status. So I suppose it's, in another way of saying it, it's like doing the right thing. That you might think that's integrity rather than love. Yes, okay. But integrity is self-love. Don't forget that. You know, to behave well and honorably is to love yourself. It means I'm not going to let myself be a dirty rat and try and teach others. I think more of myself than that. So, you know, integrity is self-love. Be sure of that, right? And if you love yourself, you know that you won't allow yourself to degenerate into cheap, crude lies and cheating and, you know, double dealing people. It can be difficult to do the right thing, especially if you're in a group or an organization which is really bent and intent on doing the bad thing or not. So, but often, you know, all it takes is one brave soul to stand up and say, do we all really believe that this is the right thing to do? And often the group will side and say, well, no, actually, no, we've always done it this way, but you're right, it's not very good, is it? Anyway, let me just finish up a bit because I want time for some interaction. I'm a 60s person, you know, a boomer, a baby boomer. We believed in love, you know, we thought it would change the world. Well, it didn't, or at least hasn't yet, but I still believe it can. The trouble is the free love movement got itself corrupted by drugs and crazy behaviors, you know, notably among celebrities and leaders. The trouble is that drugs take away freedom and awareness. They don't really create it where it does not exist. In fact, you know, if your core philosophy is no good, if it's bent or twisted or dysfunctional, doesn't matter what you do anyway. But listen, what I'd like to suggest as a result of this, and because of the troubled times we're in, why not give yourself a week-long love fest? I'm just using the word in quotes, a love fest. And you don't have to take any clothes off, as we did as kids during the summer of love years. But, you know, pour it out for 7 whole days, non-stop. Give it, and give it some more, and just see what comes back. I think you'll be amazed, actually. So let's finish up talking about love and success. Or giving, I should say. Sorry, I hinted on this before, but everyone knows, of course, that giving and love go together. That's true. Getting just doesn't work so well. But it's one of the universal laws of success to give freely. If you give plenty, it will come back to you. You have to trust. If you're mean and tight-fisted, you're always watching things, money just doesn't flow so well. If you think, oh, screw it, have a couple of $100. For one thing, it means you're not stuck to the dynamic of money. They say money is energy, but it's very sticky, gluey stuff that can get really wrapped around you if you're not careful. But if you can sort of toss it around, and I don't mean run around with a box of money on the street and do that. Could work for some, I guess, but you know, just be willing to give. So the point is that you will get things back, and these are not things that you would necessarily expect. Let me tell you about Professor Arthur Brooks. Okay, he's author of several books, and he introduced us, or the Western world, to the term gross national happiness. Or rather, he stole it from the little country of Bhutan. It was a term coined in 1972 by Bhutan's king of the time, King Wangchuck, who brought Bhutan into the modern world after the death of his, you know, they had a very old-fashioned kingdom, centuries old. But young Wangchuck was quite the lad. He moved into modern times. And he used this phrase, gross national happiness. You can guess that that comes from gross national product, which is how much money is being circulated, or a measure of how much money is being circulated. Anyway, King Wangchuck used this first, it was just a kind of jokey offhand remark to signal that his commitment to building an economy that would serve Bhutan's Buddhist spiritual values. Buddhism is a very non-material religion. It's just not built on that. Whereas, you know, Christianity is, in a way, Christianity and Judaism, you know, the story of the 5 talents and the prodigal son and all those, you know, those that don't work for a living and don't pay their way, they're useless and worthless in that kind of mythology. And it's great to see them come to their senses and start making money. Buddhists couldn't give a damn about money and stuff like that. Well, so, you know, he was trying to build an economy idea based around Buddhist spiritual values. But anyways, long story short, it took over the world. It went viral, as we'd say. And the next thing is it's now in our dictionary. Hey. But Brooks, I'll go back to Professor Arthur Brooks. He presented some quite interesting research showing that giving your time freely or money creates personal and communal wealth, and not surprisingly, happiness. And by that, I mean, Brooks' evidence showed that relationship wasn't just correlation. It was a causative relationship, meaning giving creates wealth. You know how there's a saying, you know, association doesn't mean causality. It might be just happening together as a coincidence. But all his papers and studies were pretty convincing. And part of that, I'm sure, is that the impact of altruism, the giving to others, on our emotional state of being, it gives us that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. And there's some chemistry in that. You don't need to take LSD or marijuana. It's opiates, you know, and endorphins. They're feel-good chemicals that circulate in our body and are released from our brain. But additionally, and perhaps more importantly, those who give their resources and time to others, these people are perceived as leaders, and leaders attract success. You know, leaders are not followers by definition. so they can generally go out and carve what they want. So if you want success, I don't want to sound mean and mercenary, but give, start giving, give love. If you've got nothing else to give, if you've got money to give, share it a little bit, just give till you bleed. It'll come back to you, I promise. Okay, I've ranted on for about 40 minutes, and very kind of you all to listen. But oh gosh, I can see my shirt appears to be doing a funny rippling thing called a zebra-ing. Anyone want to join me now in a comment? Even if you want to say, I don't believe a word of what you just said, that's allowed. Anybody? And don't forget, we're live on Facebook. I mean, you don't have to be identified. You're anonymous, or I'll tell you what, let me pull that screen back in this direction, then I can look at the camera. That's better, isn't it? Yeah, anyone want to add? I can hear a voice somewhere, or a sound, I should say.
It's me.
Oh, is that Raju again? Hi, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Keith, I just wanted to say, earlier you were talking about loving what you do as opposed to doing what you love.
Yep.
And what occurred to me is I remember Stuart Weil talking once about when he was in South Africa. He said, I used to do discipline for a while. And then I came to London because I wanted to do freedom. And then he said, I have to learn how to do discipline and freedom.
Yeah.
So I was thinking back to how that is really tied into about designing one's life, and if we are to love ourselves, it's a choice. It's a choice every day, every minute, every second. If we want to love ourselves or not, it's a choice. But one of the ways to love ourselves is to design our lives the way we want our life to be. We have a choice every moment to design our life. And that is a very loving thing to do for oneself.
Yes, I agree, yes. Wonderful. Yeah, well, I told you, I'm an unruly, undisciplined person. Roger, okay.
And I guess designing.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, last part was designing one's life. You can put in discipline and you can put in free time.
Yes, I think you're right. There's a balance of both. I mean, everybody knows. We know it deep down. If you just slob around and have a good time and take it easy all day, you feel yuck after about 3 days. You think, oh, God, I've got to do something, you know, I'll mow the lawn or anything, rather than just slob out. So you can't have it just all your own way, can you? Yeah. Okay, so Roger's come up with that. Roger, not Raju. A quantum of love would be the pure spiritual contact of well-wishing. Yeah, I like that, Raj. I really like that very much. So you don't even, you know, you don't have to be out there and saying, oh, you know, I'm loving you, I'm putting things your way. Just the spiritual well-wishing. If you can see a kid go by who's maybe got not very sympathetic parents, you can wish that child well. You can send a spiritual impulse. I think this is what you mean, Roger. You can send a spiritual impulse out there, which nobody would visibly see. Maybe it doesn't even need a facial gesture from you. And yet it made a difference to that child, just a little, you know, we all believe in the energy model. So we know a little ripple of thought energy that goes out there does have an impact. Yeah, okay. Oh, Raj, hi, go on, let's go for it. Make sure we can hear you first before you sound off.
Yeah, I got here about 1/4 past the hour, and I got guests here, and I just got an interruption and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Basically, what you're talking about and what I wrote above gets applied by me and Virginia every time we go to the farmers market on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And we have this total array of friends that we've created at the farmers market, and she and I are the only ones, to my observation, who get welcomed warmly and smiled at and helloed during the farmers market parade. Most people walk around ignoring everybody else.
Yeah.
We've made it a practice for the last 10 years or so to catch people's eyes and nod and then begin to open them up and make them friends. And everybody's a bloody friend of mine in the farmers market now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely, Roger.
Now, you can turn a whole society around by doing that.
Right. I want to try and top what you said, but I'm not a farmer's market person, but I'm a coffee shop person. And we have a chain of coffee shops where as soon as we walk in the door, they go, hi, hi. You know,
Yeah.
they're really glad to see us. And Viv's always like that. She's loved by everybody. So when she goes to the post office, guys practically jump on the counter. Ooh, Mrs. Scott-Mumby. Ooh. It's worth it, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't take long to cultivate, does it, Roger? You know, just be a nice person.
It's a good feeling for you yourself. Why walk around being bloody miserable?
Yeah.
I mean, in Australia, I taught everybody that the Australian saying really is, life's supposed to be enjoyed, mate.
Yeah, well, they work hard at it, the Aussies, that's for sure. Okay, thanks. Thanks for that insight. Anyone else want to say anything before we finish? Because don't forget, we're live on Facebook. We've been up there coming up to an hour soon, I guess. Anybody? Or if you're not sure, chat something. Let me go and look in the chat. Nope. Okay. I mean, yes, there are messages, but the things are already dealt with. See if any more Q&A. No, okay, so we're back to you, Roger, if you want to say something else to finish us off.
Thank you, Dr. Keith. Just wanted to say that, interestingly, when I read your book, Virtual Medicine, that got me understanding about energy medicine and how when your electrons receive a positive ray of light, of sunshine, of some bioenergetic medicine with one of the devices or a hug, and the cells all start circulating in a positive direction, and the body energy goes up. So I do feel that one of the things as a West we can understand is that, yes, there is biological medicine, there is mental medicine, but there's also this energetic medicine. And if we can tap into each type of medicine, the quality of our life can go up, and the quality of our cells, of our happiness index, going back to the gross national happiness.
Yeah, good. And it brings something to mind, Raju, which is that the North American Indian word for magic and psychic, the actual word is medicine. You know, when they say this is good medicine, they don't mean it will cure your bowels. They mean this is very strong magic, very strong psychic presence. That's very interesting, isn't it? That they would use that word medicine in that situation. But I find that fascinating. Yeah. All right. So thanks everybody. It's been a very enjoyable Sunday meeting, and I hope to see you again next week. There won't be one the week after because Viv and I are traveling to Europe, and I dare say we'll be pretty beat up. So next weekend will be the last for 2 weeks. So, you know, try and make a bit of an extra effort. Thanks for coming by, everybody. It was a great pleasure to talk.
Okay.
Yeah, take care. Lots of love. Same to you, Raj. Bye. Bye.